Get ready to feel free today as we dive into how to stop feeling guilty. I know when we feel guilty, we have this heavy weight on our shoulders. So today we're going to let that go, learn what that even means, and how to take proactive steps when you do start to feel guilty so that you can know how to keep moving forward and not keep being held back by these guilty thoughts, this fear, this shame that's holding you back. So let's dive in. First off, welcome to my channel. My name is Bela. I am a holistic wellness coach and therapist, primarily for helping professionals to help them get back on track after burnout, feeling like they're overgiving and really just giving way too much and not taking enough for themselves. So we dive into self-care practices here, and this feeling of guilt is a lot of times what prevents us from really taking steps forward in our self-care or being able to set boundaries with ourselves or others. And so it's a contributing factor to a lot of what you may be experiencing when it comes to trying to move forward with your life. As we begin talking about guilt today, one of the first things that I want you to do is try to take 3 deep breaths and even possibly put your hands over your heart. I find this to be a very centering practice that helps me to calm down and really assess where my guilt is coming from. So I encourage you to do that as step 1. Even if you want to pause this video right now and take 3 nice and deep breaths, put your hands on your heart as we continue this practice today. Step number 2 is to assess where your guilt is coming from. This may mean looking at people in your past and the very first time that you felt this kind of guilt or remorse or even shame. So sometimes we label it as guilt, but it's actually something that's been connected to shame for us as well. And so I won't go into exactly the distinction between these two today, but I want you to really think about the very first time you started to feel this guilt, or who is it in your life that is currently acting in the way that you are, that you maybe grew up with or was a huge role model for you or an example to you growing up. Now, some of these may be personal examples, and they often are. That's usually where it starts, but there also may be some societal factors at play as well, where it's something that the society as a whole has reinforced. And so, for instance, a personal would be somebody that you see them constantly working and they never take a break, and you see them working so hard and you have such respect and admiration for them. So it seems like they never really sit down, and so you grow up feeling like that's what it is to be a hardworking individual and to be a good person. I need to perform at that level all the time as well. And so without realizing it, we may attach to that belief, but also then not recognize or not attend to our own personal needs, because we're still trying to live according to somebody else's way of doing things, which may not have been healthy for them as well, even if they or you were not aware of it at the time. And another one, a societal, would be something like, especially in the American society, we are all like in love with productivity, and it's like we have to be productive all the time. And that's what high performers do, and that's how we push. And like I watch these motivational videos, and I'm not gonna lie, I love them. They are very helpful in getting me motivated and energized, especially when it comes to my workout in the morning. So they help to recenter my thoughts, but at the same time, sometimes they'll be like, you never take a break, and taking a break is for weak people, and so those kind of beliefs can then begin to be reinforced in us, and we can say, it's not okay for me to take a break, which is not the case at all. But sometimes that's kind of the over-exaggeration that gets us really pumped up and feeling invincible, but at the same time recognizing not every day can be a marathon race. And sometimes if we try to expect ourselves to perform at a marathon rate every single day, we're not going to be able to keep up that level of endurance, because even marathon runners, they train and take days off, and they run harder some days, and they run shorter intervals other days. And so there's even in their training, there's give and take and push and pull, and how much they're pushing themselves. And so we need to keep that in mind when it comes to long-term taking care of yourself as well. We need rest days, just like everybody needs rest days. We cannot perform at a level of marathon runners every single day. Next, you want to ask, am I expecting myself or others to be perfect? Again, this is about setting those unrealistic expectations of what we should really be able to do, and even what others should be able to do. You may also ask yourself, am I harboring unforgiveness for myself or others? A lot of times when we feel guilty, it's because we are holding a lot of guilt constantly on ourselves because we are unable to forgive ourselves for our previous mistakes. If you've ever been in one of those negative thought loops where you make a small mistake and then you connect that to another previous mistake and then another previous mistake, and before you know it, you're downward spiraling in your emotions and in your mental stability. And so this can lead to depression and anxiety a lot if it's not addressed. And so this guilt, we really want to identify unforgiveness for ourselves and for others and begin to walk through that forgiveness process. And then the final question you want to ask yourself when assessing where your guilt is coming from is, what am I telling myself about my identity? And so, for instance, if you're constantly telling yourself, I'm just a busy person, I'm always busy, I'm always busy, I'm always busy, your mind will actually begin to look for the information that proves that that's true. And so it's a belief that you have, and so you basically are filtering your lens of the world, or your glasses. So think of yourself wearing glasses and looking through these filters that are your beliefs. And so if I believe that I'm busy all the time, my mind is going to look for all the evidence telling me that, yep, you are busy all the time. You need to constantly be moving. You can't take a break. And so then you're going to feel guilty that you're not guilty anytime you try to take a break. Because you're going to feel that need and that pressure to keep being productive. This limiting belief or this fear may be something that you needed for a short time. It was helpful to you. So for instance, when you first start a business, like many of us have, or you're working for an agency or a business that requires a lot of work for certain projects, but then over time, you end up expecting yourself to constantly be performing at that marathon level, and you almost don't feel like you have permission to take a break, or it just doesn't feel right to take a break. You feel almost unsafe taking a break. Sometimes this can be connected to other fears of yours where you were like, if I took a break, X, Y, and Z will happen. Fear of failure, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection if you are taking a break. And so it feels like you don't have that permission to just be imperfect or to fall short or to need a rest. So you end up expecting yourself to be this kind of superhuman. And that's just not realistic. And so we want to shake any of that out through assessing all these reasons why your guilt may be coming up for you. So that is step 2. Now we're going to move into step 3. And step 3 is to look at the facts. When we look at the facts, we're actually taking the belief that we have. So for instance, my belief may be, oh my gosh, I didn't get anything accomplished this week. And so instead, taking that belief and saying, is that actually true? And then looking at all of the facts based on what you did get done that week and saying, wow, I actually got a lot accomplished, because you're actually looking at the facts. Because sometimes our belief and our emotions and our previous experience or the filter that we're looking through is telling us we're constantly not enough, we're not doing enough, we need to do more, we're not being productive, we're not doing this, we're not at our goals yet. And so we can lose sight of all that we have done and all that we have accomplished. And so it's very important to look at your beliefs against reality and say, these are the facts, and this is what I did get accomplished this week, which can help us to feel much more, have a much more positive outlook on not only like ourselves and our productivity, but also just gives us hope to keep moving forward. Number 4 is to assess the reality of what we could have done differently. Sometimes it really is that maybe we should have done something a little bit differently, and so we can just learn and take steps from that and say, okay, this is what I would like to do differently next time. And that's great. That helps us to continue to move forward. But without having made these mistakes, we wouldn't know that we needed to do that. And so releasing yourself from the fact that you've made mistakes that have led you to this place and helped you to realize that this is what you need to do to keep moving forward. So again, that helps to release the guilt, because we can say, okay, I would like to do this different moving forward, but I also accept and acknowledge the fact that I needed to make this mistake to get to this realization and to recognize that this is my next step. When looking at other things we could do different, you may also want to consider, do I need to hire somebody else to help me with this? Is this something that, is it really that you do have way too much on your plate right now and you're overcommitted, and maybe you have too many clients, or maybe you have too many business obligations and you're just like, look, I need help. I need to hire somebody else who can support me with this. And that way you can feel like you have more permission to take a break without your whole business or your whole life collapsing around the fact that you are only one person and it's impossible for you to continue to complete and accomplish everything on your own. So take a minute to assess whether it would be helpful for you to hire somebody. You may also want to just lessen your input of other things that may lead to more feelings of guilt. Now, this may be something like social media, where you find yourself following people or scrolling because you're comparing yourself, and then you end up guilting yourself in your brain, like, wow, like their life looks so perfect and looks like everything's going well for them, and why is my life not like that, and how can I don't feel like I'm living up to my own expectations. And so without even realizing it, sometimes our mind can start to play on this, on social media especially, and the news as well. I'm not doing enough. I need to do more for this world, and the world is going to pot, and it's not coming together. So if we focus on that negative news or the hype on social media or news, we're going to get caught up and lost in the hamster wheel of productivity and feeling like we're underperforming. So quieting that noise may really help to alleviate a lot of this guilt and anxiety that you're feeling. And as you lessen those things, it's very important to have something to replace it with. And so spending more time with people that have a healthier sense of self, a stronger sense of self, where they're confident or they are just more accepting of their flaws and your flaws. And so you feel more safe and accepted for just being who you are. You feel like you can open up to them. So having a safe community and support system really helps you to gain a healthier sense of self, which includes being able to let go of this guilt. Spending more time with those people helps us to really just observe and be around people who do that, which helps us to gain a calmer, healthier sense of self as well. Okay, so once you assess the reality of what you could have actually done differently, this next step is going to may feel a little bit strange to do, but I want you to look for the benefits of guilt. And so step number 5 in releasing your guilt and stopping to guilt yourself is going to be looking for the benefits of the guilt. So sometimes guilt is helpful in teaching us and showing us, that's not a good decision, or that was not the best decision for me or for others involved. I feel guilty about that. I feel bad about that. And so now I no longer want to do that. And so when we appreciate what guilt has done for us, it helps us to acknowledge and accept it rather than pretending this is a bad feeling. I shouldn't feel guilty. I need to stop feeling guilty. But instead accepting and saying, it was helpful. I appreciate it. It led me to all the action steps we wrote from the previous step. And now we are ready to move on from it. So in order to help us to move on from it, one thing that we can do, number 6, is to look at the drawbacks. What has not been helpful about guilt and continuing the cycle of guilt? And that's what I was talking about with the downward spiral, where one guilty thought connects to another guilty thought, and then we get into this bad cycle of guilt and shaming ourselves. And that leads to a very dark hole. And so we don't want to continue that path. And so looking at the drawbacks of guilt can help us to say, okay, so it was helpful for this step, and now it's not helpful beyond this point. And so that's where the balance is of saying, okay, it's time to move on from this. So sometimes it can be particularly difficult to move on from from guilt. And so, as I mentioned in the first step where I said, to assess where your guilt is coming from, maybe it's that you need to walk through some forgiveness for yourself and for others. And so number 7 is to forgive yourself for mistakes that you've made. And so forgive yourself for the fact that you've made this mistake, and recognize that all in all, this was something that needed to happen in order for you to be able to move on. And so it's okay, it's safe to make mistakes and to screw up sometimes. It's all about learning and continuing to grow and move forward from those steps. And just accept that we make mistakes sometimes. We are human, we are not robots, and even robots break down sometimes. So there's no reason to continue to push ourselves or pressure ourselves when it comes to this expectation of perfection that can a lot of times lead to this guilt and shame for us. Number 8 is to ask forgiveness of others. Is there anyone in your life that you're feeling like, you know what? I know I made this mistake and I continue to act in this way, and I just want to let this person know that I am sorry and I do apologize. And so asking for forgiveness can go a long way into healing your own suffering and the suffering of the other person, and the healing of both of you as well. Now, we are not responsible if they do not accept our apology. That is up to them. But we can try a couple times and we can apologize, and we can invite them to come back into our lives, or we can also just acknowledge and say, I'm really sorry that this happened. I do think it's best that we move forward from here separately, but at the same time, I did want to let you know that I am very sorry for my actions. And step number 9 is to release the rest. And so once you have gone through this process, we can walk through the steps of just letting it go. And so you've asked forgiveness, you've assessed the situation for anything that you could have done differently, you have found the root of it, or at least what you feel is the root of it now. A lot of these things tend to be onions. They tend to be like hidden in multiple layers, but at least acknowledging where you think the guilt is coming from and addressing that as best you can. And so we've done all the work that we can to help to release the guilt and the shame, and also to forgive ourselves and forgive others. So anytime your mind starts to pick up things from the past and say, this is something that we need to replay, and this is something that we still should feel guilty about, reminding yourself that it's safe to let it go and have a moment of self-compassion where you say, I see you, I know you're trying to come back, and I forgive myself. I accept the fact that I made this mistake in the past, and I'm going to release it now. And I've learned from it and I've grown from it. And so affirming the steps that we've walked through today and recognizing that that really is all that you can do about it. And so it is safe to release that guilt that you have in your mind. At this point, it should feel safe to just be you. It should feel safe to just have emotions, to make mistakes, and to be able to move on from here. If you find that the guilt that you're feeling does not seem to be connected to a specific situation, but it seems to be more a perpetual state of mind, it's possible that your guilt is connected to a couple different things that lead to us needing to address guilt on a deeper level. Now, this may be something like childhood trauma where your needs were not met, and so you fear abandonment, or you fear rejection, or you feel like you're constantly in a state of high alert, and so your very young inner child mind is still trying to fill certain needs that were not met when you were younger. And so if you find yourself in these situations, you may experience depression, anxiety, and this perpetual feeling of guilt and shame for just existing. And so sometimes this can lead to really dark places of depression as well. So if you find yourself in these states, I highly encourage you to seek counseling and or coaching from somebody who is a professional in the field. It's very important that you get the support that you need through this, because it's going to dive a lot deeper than you may expect and uncover some things that may be really uncomfortable for you to address. They can be connected to a lot of deeper fears for yourself, and that can unlock some things that may be really difficult to process. And so I definitely encourage you to get the support that you need as you go through this process. When I work with clients on these issues, we definitely walk through the steps that I've just talked to you through. So we look at who hurt you, how are you hurt, what beliefs do you have about yourself as a result of this hurt, and then we look at healing those wounds. Who do you need to forgive? What do you need to forgive? And then establishing safety in being yourself. So how can I feel safe in my own body and in my own mind? And how can I support you in forming new habits or beliefs about yourself to support a healthier view of yourself? We also work on establishing safety with making mistakes. So if you have this childhood trauma, fear of abandonment or fear of rejection, we want to create a space where you feel safe to make mistakes. And so that's why we talk about building a healthy community of people who are accepting, and it's safe to make mistakes around them because they also make mistakes and they're okay with their mistakes and they're okay with our mistakes. And so it helps to create a safe environment where we feel able to begin to practice this new experience of being safe to make mistakes. And so all of this is to help us to free ourselves from our guilt and begin to grow one day stronger, forgiving ourselves and able to move forward in the goals that we have for ourselves and for our clients and for our businesses. So with that is all I have for you today. If this video was helpful, definitely hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so that you can get notified when new videos arrive every Thursday. And I will be sure to continue to add more content like this. And also comment below with anything that has been really helpful for you when it comes to overcoming your guilt and releasing your guilt. Have you walked through these practices of forgiveness? What are some activities or experiences that have really helped you to overcome the guilt that you're feeling or have felt in the past? I look forward to hearing those in the comments below and connecting with you further there. And as always, let me know if there's any way that I can support you as well. In the description, you'll find a link to book a call if you're interested in counseling or coaching with me. I love what I do. I love being there for you and helping you through your process. So I look forward to connecting with you soon. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below with what was most helpful for you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button along with the bell icon to get notified about upcoming videos from Bela Coaching like this one. Visit kbelacoaching.com for details on services and information on upcoming live events, and follow Bela on social media like Instagram and Facebook for more great content. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.